Gonna be on there.
Let's see, good morning, friends. We are trying this new thing with Facebook, and I don't know if we are live or not on there. All right, so I know we're live on Instagram. Okay, we are live on Facebook as well.
Okay.
Let's see if I can make that go bigger.
There
it
we go.
is. All right, good morning, friends. Welcome to 7 a.m. on Monday morning. As Jim and Liz here, we talk about parenting through COVID-19, and I think about it as parenting and surviving through COVID-19.
No question.
And and then not even surviving, almost moving to the point of I want us to think about thriving in COVID-19 and really shifting our perspective again this week. As you know, yesterday, President Trump expanded all of the social distancing till April 30th. I'm not sure what that does for schools. Do you know if any schools are going back in the country today?
There were some schools that were supposed to go back this week.
So good morning, everybody. And so if you're watching us from afar and you are in a place where your kids are going back to school or or you have to go back to work like today, we'd like to hear about that just because I'm not sure. But I know some states were only closed for 2 weeks, and today was the day they were supposed to go back, but I don't know how much that's happening anywhere. I'm trying to get the million of notifications for all the school assignments our kids have due today off the computer. Sorry about that.
So today our kids are actually going to start online schooling again. So we're excited about the fact that they're going to have a schedule that is based on other teachers and not us, which is hopefully going to be good. We'll have to see how that works out. It doesn't change the fact that our kids are still going to be here in our living room and dining room working on things, and we still have to do our jobs. And today, I actually start back teaching at the University of Washington online. So it'll be interesting because I've got a class that's going to be 2.5 hours long, and my kids are going to have class roughly at the same time. And so how we're going to manage that and keep our house quiet, and so I'm able to teach and they're able to learn, ought to be challenging.
Yeah, and you all of a sudden had to go, you're teaching online classes now for the first time ever for your graduate students.
So stress management and using our skills that we talk about is first and foremost, firsthand knowledge of using them at this point. So,
So we thought we'd kind of talk about that this morning.
Sure.
A little bit. It's just about what are the skills that we teach and we need. Thanks, honey. I'm trying to make sure I'm actually in the camera. Trying to pull through all of this. Let's see. Somebody sent a request to be in our video. Oh, Sophia Hall. Yes, I don't know how to do that, but we can pull you in just a moment, Sophia. Thanks. And thanks, Jenny and Sophia and Ashley and everybody for joining us this morning. We're glad you're here on Instagram. I'm trying to figure out this new Facebook Live enhanced thing. So hopefully if anybody's watching on Facebook and wants to just send us a hi and a wave, please do that so I can see if the chat roll is working there. We are figuring this all out as we go along every day. So thanks for just kind of tolerating our ability to figure this out. So as you were kind of having to work through the weekend and figure out like how to get your videos made and all of your online stuff, and your students are supposed to start seeing clients this week. And so what Jim does at the university, he's a professor of school psychology, and their graduate students in school psychology, they have a clinic where they see children for their counseling sessions and supervision. And you see kids like ages 5, 6, 7 years old in your clinic, up to 18. And his students were supposed to start. Why am I telling this? You're
on a roll.
I'm on a roll. They're supposed to start, and you had to try to teach your students how to do counseling therapy with 5 and 7-year-olds.
Right.
Remotely through telehealth.
Good. I'll take it from here.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a challenge because the class has normally been that my students see live kiddos and adolescents for school. And that's challenged now because the learning environment in which my students are just learning how to do their counseling skills is now gone. I don't have a controlled environment, and as a licensed psychologist, I want to have some of that control and supervision so that my students can kind of learn the skills in a very safe manner. And so I've had to radically accept that my students are not going to see live kiddos these days, and so that's a challenge. I've never had that happen before. I'm going to have to accept that I'm teaching via a computer screen like this. That have never done that before either, and so having to keep turning my mind. We talked about this I think on Friday that the reality is that this is different, and the reality is that things aren't going to be the same, and for me to pretend that they're the same is problematic. So what we want to try to do is provide as much of an environment for my students to learn, for your students to learn as we can, so that we make it as effective as we possibly can, knowing that it's not going to be the same. And so, it being different doesn't mean it's negative. It just means it's different. And so, I'm having to keep going back to the fact that this is different. They're going to get a different experience, and that's not good or bad, right? We're trying to stay away from the judgmental terms, and so it's just been a lot of scrambling. And so I've had to radically accept that things aren't completely solidified at this point. I don't know everything that's going to happen. I don't know what May is going to look like at this point. And to top that off, this weekend we had a birthday celebration, and so it was just kind of
it was his birthday.
It was my birthday. And so it was, wanting to spend time with family, and the kids wanted to spend time with me for my birthday and celebrate it. And so we were outside, and the inside of me wanted to go back to my computer and get all this stuff done. And the outside part of me was like, okay, I should be spending time with my kids. And so I was just pulled, how do I do all this, right? Mm-hmm. And so, just knowing I had to just kind of slow down, pause, using my mindfulness skills to say, okay, look, what's most important to you right now? And so, family time won out on that, right? And I think that's helpful, that we want to make sure that we are, that I'm being a good dad and being there for my kids, right? Because we'll get over this coronavirus thing. My students are going to learn some of these skills. And what I'm not going to do is be able to get back some of my time with my kids at their ages right now. And so they all wanted to celebrate my birthday. I didn't want to say, no, thank you. Love it, thanks, no, and I'm going to go do my work, right? So I think sometimes I prioritize work over the family too much already. And so it was just a matter of, again, turning my mind and letting go of some of that angst that I'm not as far along as I want to be or prepared for my university stuff. And so we'll get through it.
And I think the hardest part, and maybe some of you guys are experiencing this also, is the fact that you're working from home.
Yeah,
right?
no
And our office is here, and the kitchen and the living room and the kids and everybody are right outside that door. Right. And it's not like you can go to hey, I'm going to go to my office for 3 hours and get some stuff done, and then I'll be back here. It's kind of this back and forth happening constantly. And that's been a huge shift for you. And it's been really hard because up until this time, you've been pretty adamant for the most part for many years that you don't work from home.
Correct.
Mostly because you find it completely unproductive and that everything that you're experiencing. And so that's been a really hard piece for you to be able to do that. And so I think that's been one of the places where I've seen you practicing a lot of skills. And I think a lot of conversation with all of us about that, which I think is really one of the most important things about that balance every day, because this weekend you worked and fits and spurts throughout the weekend trying to get some videos for your classes made.
Right.
And we had to practice that acceptance of letting you do that while also knowing today is the day that the dreaded science fair project was due in our house. That, the boys, they worked together as a team this year in middle school, and they had it assigned in September. It is now March 30th when the day it was due, meaning like the whole journal write-up, the lab write-up, and then the display board was due. And in recent years, we have decided that Jim is in charge of science fair. It's not something that is my forte on that, or I kind of manage the rest of all of their assignments and projects, and science fair is one that I really don't want to have to take over at all. So he's worked on that, but that was a very long, drawn out process of getting that done Saturday and Sunday while you were getting all your stuff done. And I just kept saying like, hey, there's somebody just sitting out there at the table not doing anything. And there was a lot of distress tolerance skills we all had to use, from me not nagging and getting frustrated that it wasn't getting done, you trying to balance the work on it, and then
with my own work, right?
With your own work, but then also really having to coach Ashton through a lot of skills for when he kept getting stuck in the willfulness of I don't want to do this. This sucks. I hate this. Kind of walking through that repeatedly.
Anybody else have kids that are in that spot at all?
Mm-hmm. Or have the science fair.
Thumbs up, maybe.
Science fair. Morning, Julie. Julie, I know you have that going on in your house. Morning, Sophia and Polo. Glad you guys are here.
So I thought what we could do during these times, and so as we go through our own life circumstances and using these skills is to kind of share that out. So we're going to talk today a little bit about our distress tolerance skills, right? About how do we deal with the in the moment situation when we know our emotions have gotten really pretty high, right? And so Liz was getting pretty frustrated with Ashton because Ashton was laying on the couch. He was not doing some of the things that we had asked him to do. So I would give him an assignment. I'd point out what he has to do, and then I'd go back in and try to get some of my university work done. And 5 minutes later, I hear Liz yelling at Ashton, "Hey, get up! You need to be doing this." And I'm like, "Okay, things are running emotionally hot. How do we deal with this?" And then I'm feeling like, okay, I'm not doing my job, and so I've got to get back out there, right? And so what do we do when those circumstances, when we're butting heads with our kids? And I think that maybe what we want to start to do is maybe talk about either our accepts crisis toolbox or do pros and cons. What do you want?
I was thinking we should talk about accepts and self-soothe skills because I think both of those are equally important. When we think about these skills in DBT Steps A, that's the curriculum, which we're going to talk about later in general about our curriculum in a little while. That's this curriculum that we developed called DBT Skills in Schools, Skills Training for Emotional Problem Solving for Adolescents. And that's where the skills were coming from. They come from our evidence-based treatment called dialectical behavior therapy. But I think when I think about these crisis survival skills, which, in some ways, like COVID is crisis survival, having everybody on top of each other all day, every day, which I love. I actually kind of love having you home every day. And simultaneously, I know you don't love being home every day in that way. But the kids, everybody, we're all real. We all have emotions. We're all trying to figure this out. The skills are about how do you get through difficult situations when your emotions are high without making the situation worse, right? Without doing the yelling or the screaming or engaging in a problem behavior, which sometimes can just be the yelling and the screaming is the problem behavior, or walking out or smashing something. All those things during this time, or, I always worry, this is like my mind goes here, like sometimes when the kids start to get really frustrated, like in that science fair board, that points they might get so frustrated that they ruin some of the work they've already done. That starts to get high, and we're like coaching them, okay, when do you need to take a break? And so that's what some of the crisis survival skills are about. How do you get through these difficult situations with these high emotions without making it worse? And I imagine you've all had that during some of this. If you want to put something in the comments on either of your platforms, say like, have you had those situations where emotions got really high, where you might have yelled, or the kids got really angry or sad or frustrated and engaged in a behavior that you maybe thought was quote unquote over the top.
Let us know what that emotion might be too. Was it anger? Was it sadness? Was it shame? Something along those lines. And the idea being is that when we talked the first time about our mindfulness, right, being aware of what our bodies are telling us, here when we're talking about our crisis survival skills that Liz just talked about, we want to figure out where in our bodies do we feel it, and then is it above a certain level that makes it like almost really impossible to make effective decisions. And so when we talk about this in the lessons, in the curriculum, we talk about an emotional thermometer that inside you, with 100 being emotionally just the worst, like you're going to die, right? Just you're going to jump out of your skin, and 0 being like comatose, that you're just like almost going to be asleep, right? It's that 65 level, basically, right? So inside you, and everybody's 65 levels different, we would say, hey, that's a spot where we say, geez, I'm in emotion mind. I need to do something different, because if I make a decision up here above 65, it's not going to be a good decision. And all of us have been there where we've made decisions when our emotions are screaming at us, and they've often been poor decisions or they've made things worse, right? And so the idea is not to make things worse, right? And so we've got skills to help us way up here so that when our emotions come down below that 65, we have a different set of things that we can do, right?
So we'll talk about that. I just want to come and thank you guys for your questions. Just Cynthia, thank you. She says, I love Jim's message about how schoolwork's going to be fine and can be made up later, and work's going to be fine and we can make up that work later too. But time with our kids at these ages isn't something we can make up. And I think that's the point of radical acceptance and perspective shifting that we were talking about last week that is just so important. So I'm glad Cynthia just highlighted that again for us, because I really want you guys to think about that perspective on how do we thrive in this time over anything. And Polo has a question also on how can parents use distress tolerance skills when their children, kids, students are unmotivated or unwilling to do the schoolwork because, quote, it's not graded and so it doesn't count. And so those are great questions too. We'll come to that after we talk a little bit about what are the distress tolerance skills, crisis survival skills we're talking about this morning. So the first ones, I think, is a skill that we call distract with wise mind accepts. DBT likes lots of mnemonics that we use for our skills. And the accept skills are about a different variety of ways that, and categories of ways that you can distract from your emotion urges, from acting on your emotions in that moment. And the key with all of these, right, is that they're time limited and they're effective, and you're using the distract skills until your urges to act on your emotion go down.
Right.
So
before she goes on, if you want to take a piece of scratch paper real quickly and write down the letters for accepts vertically, right? A, C1, C2, E, P, T, S. We're gonna give you some ideas of what each of those letters stand for, and then some of the things that you can do with it.
So, the first thing I think is like figuring out the A stands for activity. What are some of the different activities you can do when you are in order to distract? Maybe, and this is a great time. I think so many people are doing this and I love this, are more Zoom meetings. We talked the other day about like Zoom happy hours, with people, but I think also for the kids, having Zoom meetings and connecting, or going to read a book is another activity, or doing an art project if it's not an assigned art project from school. Right. Just how do you find some kind of different activity to connect with as you're going through things, I think is important. Another one of the skills, as we talk about, and I don't want to spend all our time just like going through lots of details on these, but I'll like is how do you do something that's contributing, right? And I think this is something I'm seeing more and more happening in our community, of contributing and doing something nice for someone else, right, is a way to kind of really shift on some of those things, and think about how do you contribute, donate, do something nice. And so maybe this has happened for some of you, but I know this weekend we had some cupcakes delivered to our front door for Grace, which was something that one of her friends and parents were doing, and baking and sharing that out with people and doing some contributing. I don't know if they were doing it as a crisis survival skill or not, but that is something that you can do as an activity to shift your attention away from your emotions and your urges to act on those emotions to doing something. Or picking up food and delivering it food. We had food ordered for us this weekend, and that just brought lots of joy. And then we were able to go pick up that food along with some other meals and deliver out to people this weekend also, and trying to find the joy in that.
We also did sidewalk chalk, right? So we went around the neighborhood to some of Grace's friends, and we just wrote words of encouragement on their sidewalks, and right. So we know that we can't be there with them in physical distance. So they're just small things to do, with the idea being that we don't give into the emotion, we distract from that emotion, and we use activities. You had mentioned and contributing, right?
Right.
The third letter is what we call C2, or the second C is comparisons, and that one's a little bit trickier, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to think about ideas of comparing ourselves to other situations in which we've gotten through difficult times, and so that often gives us times of confidence, right? That we can get through this. We've been here before. I've gotten through it, and I can remember how I did that. So that would be helpful. Or we can compare ourselves to other people who have less resources and less opportunities than we do, right? And so it kind of helps us reframe some of where we are in our struggles.
Yeah, and I think that the key is like, comparisons, like Jim said, is that really tricky one because, we hear all the time, like comparison is the thief of joy, right? And that is true for some people and probably a good number of people. In general, comparisons can likely be self-invalidating and make you feel worse. Like, why am I complaining when other people have it worse than me? And for some people, sometimes in certain situations, it also can be something that helps to shift your attention, to distract your attention away from the struggles you're having in the moment. And so if it works for you in that moment, use it. If it doesn't, if it's one of those things that kind of makes you feel more guilty or is self-invalidating, then it's not one to use. But comparisons can be that balance. There are times when we're looking at what's happening in your region, in your area, in your house, compared to what others are experiencing, it can help for you to shift. The other ones is like distract with other emotions. How can you shift your emotion from maybe if you're feeling really anxious or frustrated to something else? One of my favorite ways to distract with other emotions is by watching certain movies. Like if I'm really frustrated or angry, maybe I'm going to watch a comedy, something that's funny. Or I might even decide sometimes to watch like a scary movie. I don't always have to shift it to a positive emotion. Right. If I'm angry, I'm going to watch something that's really scary and just shift it to fear. Right? But it's how do you distract with another emotion, produce something, and I might do that with music. If I have different types of music, I'm going to bring that in. I'm not going to, if I'm really sad, bringing in music or like a love story, like The Notebook or something that's going to like increase my sadness. Like that wouldn't be effective distraction there.
Right. So that's the E. The P is pushing away, and this is something that you do to say, you know what, I can't do this right now. I've got to teach a class. I've got to work on something else. I will put this on a sheet of paper, or I'll put this in a drawer, and in an hour from now, I'll come back to it. Right now, I just need to put this emotion away so that I don't deal with it. I don't make any decisions and focus on something else. And so pushing away is sometimes a good idea. You can put it in like a cupboard or whatever else and say, I'll come back to you in an hour or 2 hours and do it that way. And that's often what I've had to do with when we're doing the science fair project. I'm like, okay, look, here's where we are. I'll be back in a half an hour. All right. So I need to go ahead and do this. I'm concentrating on this. And if I react to our boys who are doing the science fair project right now, it's going to be a mess, right? They're going to start crying, or I'm going to be crying, and it'll just be not good, right? So distraction actually can help reduce some of that emotion.
And can I also highlight, like with the science fair project and the display board, the fact that we're not going back to school means that nobody might actually ever see the display board, which was another balance throughout
right.
that.
And that kind of gets to Polo's point, right? So how do you motivate kids to do something that looks good, that they're going to get graded on, and nobody's going to see it? It's just, whoa, wait a minute, right? And my kids know that right away, like, well, no one's really going to see it, right? And so how do you kind of keep that going? And that's a hard thing, right? And so some of that's going to be self-internal. Some of it's going to be what can we pair it with that they really do like, though? And so that's the Polo's question, that how do we pair something that the kids are doing at their homes when you don't see them with something that they really do like, right? So that might be some of the connection that you have. It might be, hey, if we do this, we can meet and play basketball. We can do this and that. I mean, just trying to find ways to use what they do like to pair it with something that you want them to be able to do.
Yeah. So Sophia's asking, did we actually make the science fair board? We did, because we have to be able to take pictures of it so that they can send it in for their grade.
I can go get it.
So yes, you should go get it. And you'll see kind of how we found a balance on it. But yeah, so they still had to do it, and they still had to do the write-up. And, that's the thing that makes things really interesting on this balance of how do you do things when they're not graded, or you don't have to do it all the way. And that's where we've been trying to find this balance with our kids. Like, they've had a lot of assignments that they've had to do. Oh, here comes the board. Ready?
Ta-da!
Good dogs gone bad. Just so you want to know what that means, it means they decided to see which hot dogs would mold and decay faster or not based on the amount of preservatives they had. And they put all different kinds of hot dogs, from natural hot dogs to turkey dogs to kosher hot dogs, like in Ziploc bags and veggie dogs in our basement for 2 months, and recorded how moldy and nasty they got over the time.
In a plastic bag. We didn't have mold running around in our basement.
Yes. But we had to make the board. right? And there was that question kind of going through with them all the time. And um, equal parts gross and equal parts cool. Yes, very true. I thought, again, another reason why I did not manage the science fair project, because that was pretty gross. And so I avoided that.
Let's try to get through. So we left off at P, that was our pushing away. The T is thoughts. And so trying to replace the thoughts that you're really angry at somebody, that there's a frustration with other thoughts.
And that could be like anything from like doing crossword puzzles or Sudoku. When we're in schools, I tell kids all the time to count the tiles in the ceiling on the wall, or the bricks on the cement bricks on the walls in their classrooms, as a way of just shifting your attention to other thoughts, right? Like, yes, we want them to pay attention in class, but sometimes when somebody's so frustrated in class or really angry and they're maybe going to say something or do something that's going to get them in even more trouble, they need to not pay attention for a short period of time in order to tolerate those urges, and bring their attention by counting something, or maybe singing a song in their head for a little while.
And keep in mind, distracting can be very effective, right? If we're not going to give into our emotion minds, what we want to make sure that we're doing is not distracting all the time, right? Because it's not getting rid of our emotions. It's not helping us feel any better. And so the idea is not to make a poor decision. So if you actually end up feeling better, great. That's not the purpose of the crisis survival skills, though. All right, and the last one is sensation. So doing something that changes your sensation. So that might be brushing your dog. It might be taking a hot shower. It might be taking a cold shower, right? So something that just changes the sensations that you have based on the strong emotion that you're actually feeling. So I think that is where our distract with the wise mind accepts skill is.
Mm-hmm. And that may be coming like distracting with sensations for sometimes when your emotions are really hot, that like maybe just, putting an ice pack in your hands or on your face can be a way to distract with sensations. This is where I think sometimes like squeeze balls come in quite a bit, or lotions can come in, like putting lotions on yourself and just like that soothing piece. Things like that. Intense exercise and getting your body moving can be some just physical sensations you can distract with. So those are just a whole variety, like we said, of ideas of how do you distract from acting on your emotion, right? From making the situation worse in whatever it is, and doing that until you no longer want to act on it. And we all need those moments and breaks. We saw them with the kids yesterday. That's why we ended up like, let's get this project done. Back to kind of that question of like, how do you motivate them to do something when they don't want to do it? And there's not a whole lot of contingency. How do you put a reinforcer or contingency on that for them? So yesterday it was like, to go for a bike ride, skateboard ride was a big part. Like Ashton had really been wanting to go out and ride his electric skateboard.
And so we paired it with that, right?
So like as soon as this part of the board is done, we didn't have to get the whole board done at that moment, but we were breaking it down into chunks. We get this part of the board done, then we'll go out for a bike ride. And that kind of fit with Grace wanting to go deliver some notes and do some chalking by her friend's house, us you needing to get out of the house and move around a little. So trying to chunk some of those pieces together and building in those reinforcements. And I think the other part I'll just say about the non-required coursework is to think as a parent for your kid, what matters? Like, where's the area that they're going to slide? Is it really like math and reading that matter a lot to your kid? Or maybe it's just math. And then we're going to fill in with other things. That not trying to get them to do all their assignments that aren't required or all the subjects. What are the things that matter, and how do you do that in small chunks with your kids and find ways to fit that in with them? And then what's the reinforcer for them to do that that's specific to them? Because maybe they're not self-motivated to the schoolwork, but what will motivate them?
And if you're a teacher trying to teach kids on online learning, getting back to POS, it's going to be about the relationships. And I think that relationship building is so important. And so it's hard when you don't have a relationship with a kid to try to push them to do things. If you've got a relationship and you can tie something that that student likes to do, then talk about those things, right? And so you might have to balance out, getting through all 3 pages of what math or social studies with 1.5 pages and talking about something that they really like. It could be sports, it could be hobbies, it could be music. So I would put those things together for the motivation piece, because then the student looks for the relationship piece, the connection. And that connection during this time of COVID-19 is going to be really important. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed that at 7:30 already, that time flew by for us. Let us know if you like the breakdown of some of the skills that we're doing. As we did distress tolerance, crisis survival today with accepts, and so give us a shout out. Julie asked, which hot dog should we be eating after that experiment? Julie, the answer is the Oscar Mayer hot dogs. They probably have the most preservatives in them. So if they're stuck in your freezer for a year or so, like they are in the Mazza household, the Oscar Mayers.
I guess the question is, which ones should you be eating depending on, do you want more preservatives or less preservatives? Yeah, it depends what your outcome is. And so hopefully these were helpful. We didn't get to talking about another skill, which is about just being nice to yourself. So I'm just going to say this really quickly. Do something nice for yourself. Take time to take a bath, to go for a walk, to light candles in your house, and find ways to kind of also soothe in moments of high emotion. Maybe it's just getting under the blanket with one of your cozy, fuzzy blankets. I think that's really important too. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on Wednesday. We're going to be doing this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. So hopefully you guys will join us, let other people know about it. Michelle from White River, Arizona, we're so happy you're here and that you're using the DBT Steps A skills with your clients through the pandemic. We did a big training with you guys, and we're so sad that we haven't been able to come back this month to do more training with you. But hopefully we'll be out there with you in your schools and your community soon, but glad you're teaching them all the skills as well.
Really appreciate all the questions that you brought in. So that makes it easier for us to kind of go in a direction that's helpful to our listeners. So thank you.
And so here's our exciting thing that we're going to do, and we're hoping it's going to work starting tomorrow. We're going to start teaching DBT Steps A classes from our living room with our kids. And so that's the social emotional learning curriculum that Jim and I developed and have been working with schools around the country to teach and implement. And I think I said this maybe last week at some point, I decided, so since I get to be in charge of the school schedule for the day, that I was going to put in DBT Steps A social emotional learning into our kids, and I'm going to teach them the lessons, and Jim's going to teach them as we're going to walk through this. And then we decided, well, same with you guys, like if we're going to do this and talk to friends and give them some advice and coaching, and we're going to teach our kids skills, why don't we share it with everybody? So we are going to record them, and I figured out yesterday that we can put them on through Zoom, and then Zoom can push them into Facebook to live stream it with like a 20-second delay. And we're going to start that tomorrow morning and do that on Tuesday and Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. So why are any Mazzas going to ever eat hot dogs again? Sorry, I got distracted. Look at that. I got distracted. So we want your kids to come and watch us teach the skills. And the more kids we have watching remotely, then we will also be able to take questions and do that. So I'm going to figure out today, like I'm not the technological person here, and so I'm going to figure out today, how do I set that up on Zoom, make sure, I'll test it out to make sure that I can push it over to Facebook. We're able to get this weekend like some extra microphones and an extra webcam, so we'll have 2 different webcams and 2 microphones going in the living room, and try and do this. But it's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific time here in Seattle. On Tuesday and Thursday mornings.
Kids invited. So that's where we certainly bring your kids. Sophia asked if the kids should be there to watch. Absolutely. Our parent shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Kids and the lessons are Tuesday, Thursday.
And we think parents should watch too, because we think you'll learn skills also that then you can have conversations and coach your kids and talk about how do they use these skills from day to day. So tomorrow morning, we're going to start off with teaching some of our mindfulness skills. I am going to try to push out on Facebook and Instagram today the Zoom login piece, but with my Zoom account currently, I can only carry up to 100 people, and that would be amazing if 100 people showed up. I don't know if that will happen, but I'll send that out for Zoom, and if you can't get on Zoom, then they can also just watch on Facebook. And it's our first attempt at this. It probably won't be all that great, and then hopefully you guys are going to give us lots of feedback so that we can just keep figuring out how to improve it.
No, it'll be great. We just realized it can probably be better.
No, it might suck. It's the first time we're doing it. It might suck. And I'm okay if it sucks the first time and the second time, and then hopefully you all keep giving us feedback. In that side note, if you don't like, that's my growth mindset perspective. Like, I'm not going to try to make it perfect before we do it, and we're just going to get it out there and we'll try it. So hopefully you and your kids will come join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. And like I said, I'll push that out on Facebook and Instagram, what that looks like. But 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in our living room with our kids, and I'll just hope that they are quasi well behaved and not.
Yeah, and we'll try to give you an idea of what we're going to be covering. It'll be similar.
We're going to do wise mind and non-judgmental stance from some of our mindfulness skills from DBT Steps A. And so that's where we are. All right. We hope you all have a great day. We hope you find joy in your day. Please mindfully spend some time to look for moments of joy.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And we will see you all hopefully here on Wednesday morning. Please give us feedback. Thank you all for joining us. Share with your friends. Our goal is to really figure out how to make this beneficial for people. And we really hope to see you, at least your kids and your kids, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in our living room.
Yep. So Wise Mind Accepts is Wise Mind for
tomorrow morning.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have it figured out by then, and hopefully this technology stuff will work.
All right.
See you all tomorrow.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.